Our invocation will be provided by Reverend Charles McCorkle, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Boy Scout Troop 59. If you would, please stand with me.
Let us pray. Lord, we thank you, God, for who you are. We thank you, God, for your grace. We thank you, Lord, for your mercy. We want to thank you, Lord, that through 2022, you kept us and you brought us safe to 2023. As we gather today, we pray that we would do the things that is pleasing in thy sight. Lord, you said in your word, if any man lack wisdom, to ask, and you will give it to them. We are asking you, Lord, to give us wisdom and give our mayor, our council, our city manager, give them the wisdom. Give us the people the wisdom, God, that we will do the things that's pleasing in thy sight and that you may be glorified. Yes. These things we ask in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Please remain standing for the presentation of the colors. Color guard, advance. Color guard, post the colors. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City of Mount Holly. Thank you once again for having us here tonight. We've always enjoyed doing the flag ceremony. Once again, we started a new year. We've made all kinds of New Year's resolutions. How many have stuck to your New Year's resolutions this year? Or how many have dropped them already?
Tomorrow's a new day.
Speaking of that, working with these young gentlemen in our community, just want to kind of give you guys a reminder. Careful when you're driving around town. These guys are out and about collecting trash off the roads and stuff along with other students and other kids in the community. So tonight I just want to throw out a reminder that don't forget we've got our kids out there these days, so be careful watching where you're going and how you're driving around town. And thank you for the gentlemen in the back, our police officers and our firefighters who have always been kind of our backs for us. And appreciate it, Mr. Mayor. Y'all have a great evening.
You too. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. You may be seated. We always appreciate Boy Scout Troop 59 being here. I appreciate former Councilman Reverend Charles McCorkle as I pulled him out of the crowd to have the invocation tonight. So thank you for providing us with that. We do have 2 public hearings and public comment sign-up sheets when you walk in the door. Each one, we ask you limit your comments to 3 minutes. On public comment, we won't respond to any questions. We will take your comments for information. And so I encourage you to do that. It will be here sooner than you think. So the next item is to set the agenda. I have one addition to the consent agenda. It's a proclamation for National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, which is today. So we'll add that. Are there any, also Stephanie McLaughlin will be presenting the check for the Community Development Foundation. Any other changes to the agenda? Here and none, I'll entertain a motion to approve. A motion by Mr. Moore, second by Ms. Polish. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. The motion passes. Next is our consent agenda. We have 7 items. Are there any questions? Here and none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion by Mr. Craig, second by Ms. Shoemaker. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passes. I'd ask council to join me on the floor, please. The first item under presentations is a resolution honoring our sheriff, Alan Cloninger. Sheriff Cloninger, if you would, come forward. This is a resolution of appreciation for Alan Glenn Cloninger upon his retirement as sheriff. Whereas Sheriff Alan Cloninger decided not to run for an additional term of office after serving 18 years as our sheriff of Gaston County. And whereas Sheriff Cloninger has been available to the citizens of Gaston County and has remained responsive to the needs of our county and our citizens throughout his tenure. And whereas Alan has proven himself as an able administrator over our county jail, courthouse security, and the many other functions for which he had oversight and responsibility, supervising 285 employees and a $24.1 million budget. And during his years as sheriff, there have been many improvements in procedures and practices within the sheriff's office, and in particular with the operations of our county jail. And whereas as sheriff, Alan brought educational programs to the Gaston County Jail, as well as a clinical counselor on staff for the residents of the jail. And further, Alan fought for better pay for his deputies, had defibrillators installed in the patrol cars, and promoted the department's domestic violence unit. And whereas a lifelong resident of Gaston County and an attorney, Alan began his civic service at age 15 in Dallas, North Carolina, as a member of the Rescue Squad and Volunteer Fire Department, later serving with the Dallas and Gaston County Police Departments, Gaston County Jail and District Attorney's Office, and has stated that he will continue his civic services beyond his time as sheriff. And whereas Alan's wife, Kathy Mabry Cloninger, has been instrumental in assisting him throughout his years of service, and Alan is a proud husband to Kathy, father to his two daughters, Margaret Ann Cloninger Stroop and Shauna Barrett Tillery, and grandfather to his two grandchildren, Caroline Faye Tillery and Jackson Aguilon Tillery.
Wasn't my choice.
Whereas Alan received dozens of county and state certifications and awards for his service in law enforcement as sheriff and as community leader, and has further served the Gaston County community by volunteering over the years for over 30 different organizations, including Shrine Clubs, Rotary, Boys and Girls Club, Gaston College, and Governor's Crime Commission. Now, therefore, the mayor and city council hereby express our great appreciation to our sheriff, Alan Cloninger, for his service to the people of this county, and our best wishes on his future endeavors.
Thank you, Mayor.
my friend. You wanna speak?
Well, I reckon I have to speak. Thank you to all of y'all citizens of Mount Holly and to the council and mayor. So y'all didn't know he was kin, did you?
I wasn't gonna bring it up, but he did.
He usually brings it up to me, but
He's not the sheriff anymore. so he brings it up.
as Leroy Russell told me when he had to retire, once you're gone, you're a nobody, and that's true. My phone has quit ringing.
Amen.
But no, it was my honor to serve for 18 years. And it was my honor to be in Mount Holly a lot. And it was, this is special. But I didn't do the job as sheriff. I did it for the people. And I believe that your law enforcement agency, led by Chief Reagan, holds that same value, that they're here for the people, not for themselves. And we all should always remember that in all our endeavors. I'll end by saying at the sheriff's office, when you came to work for me, I look at you and say, our philosophy is do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Because everybody you deal with every day has a mother, father, brother, sister, and uncle that cares about them and loves them just as much as you. And I told everybody that. And we were successful most of the time having everybody do that. A couple times it didn't work. I mean, we took care of it. But I thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just embarrassed, if you want to know the truth.
We'd like to shake your hand up here and take a picture so we can embarrass you further. Thank you. Next, we have a presentation of a check. Sorry, I'll get to the microphone. A check from the Mount Holly Community Development Foundation, Stephanie McLaughlin.
Hi, Council. In your honor, I'm Stephanie McLaughlin. I will be the 2023 Chair of the Mount Holly Community Development Foundation. And we work really closely with the City of Mount Holly, Friends of the Greenway, with the arts in the community, really making this a great place to live and work and play. We've worked closely with Mr. Braswell and team, and the Mount Holly Community Development Foundation, through its Frogs Committee, is happy to release to the City of Mount Holly grant funds in the amount of $13,000 designated for Greenway amenities as part of our commitment to the City of Mount Holly. We have a couple of priorities that are tied to these funds: the purchase and installation of 3 bike fix-it stations and the purchase and installation of 4 permanent trail counters for the greenways. Our ability to grant these funds to the city is made possible due to the hard work of our volunteers, the generosity of our sponsors, and corporate funding from community partners of the foundation. So now you have to go make it happen.
Thank you. We look forward to the challenge.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You don't just stand over there.
I know. I just want
Next, we'll have the swearing in of firefighter Ethan Adler.
Mayor, City Council, citizens of Mount Holly. This is Ethan Adler. He is our newest firefighter that's being sworn in tonight. Ethan came to us as a part-time firefighter in 2001. He started his career, I said 2001, 2021. He's not.
He wasn't alive in 2001.
Man. Wow. Say, Chief. We'll start over. This is Ethan Adler. He started his. There we go. It's all about having fun, I guess, right? So I was just making sure everybody was awake, that's all. So anyway, Ethan came to us in 2021 as a part-time firefighter, and then also he started his career in Cornelius Fire Department in 2021 as well. So he came to us as a full-time firefighter in 2022, and so tonight I'm going to give him this badge. So this badge is important. It's synonymous to Mount Holly Fire Department. If you go back to the beginning of our department, which started in 1914, our badges look very similar to this. A little bit smaller, but very similar to this. And we wanted to bring that back. But also we wanted to make it important to each individual firefighter. Each badge has a number on it. This Ethan's badge will have 050. So number 50 will always be Ethan's badge. So as he progresses in the fire department and up to hopefully captain one day, and then deputy chief and maybe even fire chief, that number 50 will always stay with him throughout his career. So at this time, Ethan, I'm going to let the mayor do his thing.
Either please place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America and the state of North Carolina against all enemies, both foreign and domestic, and you will faithfully and impartially discharge your duties as a firefighter of the City of Mount Holly under the appointment of the City of Mount Holly to the laws of North Carolina to the best of your skills and abilities, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Who's gonna What's your sister?
My mother.
Oh, okay. Great. That's the fastest anybody's ever done. That's it, right? Ethan needs to sign Next on the agenda is a presentation from the Glendale Property Advisory Committee, Teresa Connor. As Ms. Connor makes her way to the podium, I want to thank the committee for the job they've done. The council appreciates the history of Ransom Hunter, significant to our community as a professional, as a businessman, as a citizen. So we have been informed on many occasions, which we're thankful for, of the history of Ransom Hunter and his contributions to all. And so therefore, and I'm going to turn it over to Miles Braswell in just a second before Ms. Connor speaks. We've appointed the committee through our staff to come up with a recommendation on how best to honor his legacy. So I'm going to turn it over to Miles Braswell.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Ms. Connor again. She did a great job chairing this committee, and the committee members themselves who will be recognized here in a second, they all did a great job. When we first started, the goal of the committee was to have this presentation at the council retreat, which is in March. And so you can see how efficient and effective they were to get to this point right now. And that's all because of Ms. Connor's leadership on this committee. One thing I did want to point out to the mayor and council, it was not in your packet, but we have not shared this information with Mr. Hunter's family at all. And so I just wanted to state that, just so that y'all are aware that this is the first time anybody's hearing this information is to the mayor and council. And upon your direction, we can do that at some point if we need to. So I turn it over to Ms. Connor.
Good evening. I'd like to thank, first of all, I'd like to thank God for allowing me to be here today. And also, we, the advisory committee team, would like to thank the citizens of Mount Holly. And most of all, we'd like to thank you, Mayor, and the staff for allowing us to be here tonight. And with that, we're going to move right along with what's going on. Also, we'd like to give a special thank you to the Ransom's family for being here tonight as well. Well, we discussed the Glendale Property Advisory Committee Board. We got together and we were formed, and these are the members of that committee. City Council liaison is Ivory Craig, Black History Forum member and Advisory Committee Chair, which was me, Teresa Connor Green, and also I'm a member of the Mount Holly Historical Society as well. Gaston County Historic Preservation Commission was Ms. Shannon Whittle. She resigned in November due to professional workload. Mount Holly Historical Society, Richard Brown and Mr. William Brooks. Parks and Recreation Commission, Mr. Marshall Huffstadler. Public Arts Advisory Commission, Ms. Bay Hart. Parks and Recreation Superintendent, Mr. Mark Jusko. Assistant City Manager, Mr. Brian DuPont, and City Manager, Mr. Miles Braswell. A big thank you to each one of you, because we had a wonderful time working together. The Historic Glendale Property Advisory Committee, as discussed at the 2022 City Council retreat, the formation of a committee was discussed to establish priorities for this property. The committee met monthly beginning in August of this past year, and we toured the location in September to see what the site could become. The goal of the committee was to discuss ideas and prioritize recommendations for this historic site. This historic property was once owned by a man named Mr. Ransom Hunter. And to give you a small briefing, summary of Ransom Hunter, as we all know, and to the ones that don't know, Ransom Hunter was the first freed African-American slave to own property in Gaston County. Ransom was a prominent businessman, and he did own 3-mile radius of property right here in Mount Holly. Ransom owned a livery stable that was located on the historic property on Glendale. Ransom was a blacksmith, and he shoed horses for the community and abroad. Once the horses received their new shoes, he would walk the horse from his stable by the bridle and lead the horse to the white rock that sits on the corner of Glendale and Hawthorne. Upon arrival to that rock, the owner of the horse would then step up on the rock and be escorted onto his saddle for departure from this area that was later called Freedom. This unique name was given to this area by Ransom because he wanted to create a safe haven for African Americans to move freely without concerns. He was very successful. Ransom also donated property to 2 churches in this Freedom area, which are now still functioning, and they are called Burge Memorial and Mount Sinai Baptist Church. Ransom surely lived with integrity and was well respected, not only in Freedom, but all over Mount Holly. Ransom was very inclusive in his work and business at hand. When Ransom would come to the table, he came with dignity, and he negotiated deeds to help make Mount Holly what it is today. Ransom had business with some of our well-known colleagues, such as A.P. Ryan, C.E. Hutchison, R.G. Love, and D.H. Hill. D.H. Hill, as we know, has a library named after him at North Carolina State University. The list goes on and on with the connections and accomplishments that were made during the time of Ransom Hunter. Not to mention when the Emancipation Proclamation came in effect. The African Americans were told they had to sharecrop or get off the property. Ransom shoed his horse and wagon and headed down to South Carolina to bring our people up and house them, and the people he housed became entrepreneurs and businessmen and women. To name a few, Mr. Doc Byers was our first African-American barber. Lord Truesdale, our first black market dentist. Andrew Bailey was trained as a blacksmith by Ransom's son Torrance. Larry Wallace, our first African-American doctor. And Ransom's legacy is still going on through this family today. But due to time restrictions, we must move on to our next items of concern. Back to the slides. The city purchased the property in the fall of 2014. The property stands at 2.4 acres, 7 parcels, and sits on the corner of West Glendale and South Hawthorne. In spring of 2022, underbrush was cleared and the area was cleaned up by our Parks and Recs. This historic Glendale property map is showing you that area. Wonderful. This historic property, after the underbrush was taken out this past spring and a site visit, we did a field trip to this site in September the 15th of 2022. And you can see the difference as what it looks like after the underbrush was taken away. And this is us when we went on our field trip. We were walking through, all brainstorming of what we think it should be and could be, and where the house used to be, and wonder what that was, and where the well was located. All these things went through our mind as we were walking on this field trip. This historic property advisory committee team came back, and we prioritized our ideas, and we brainstormed about this property. And so we came up with a few ideas. First, we thought we should reach out to an archaeologist or a survey firm, examine the historical significance of the site, Then we'd hire a design firm to develop the property with these amenities. Then we'd say we'd have a walkway or a green space. As part of the walkway through the property, have educational signage or a kiosk about Mr. Ransom Hunter and his accomplishments. And then we considered some art installments. Maybe we can include a horse at the Freedom Rock, and then place ceramic children or along the walkway or the green space. Then we thought about a playground area and also a shelter when people have family reunions, get-togethers, and just come out and just enjoy and learn as you're out there. And then later on, we said we'll get a parking area once this location is determined as a park. Now, we're at our questions.
Does council have any questions for the committee or staff? Okay. So the next step here, Miles, would be if council so chooses to share this with the family and then come back for direction.
Yes, I would recommend that, that staff would take this information and share it with the family. Yes, sir.
Okay. Does council feel that that would be the next best step?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, we certainly appreciate that. We will share it with the family, and then we will have it back on the agenda once that happens to get direction on hiring the firm, the archaeologists, the significance of the property, as well as the other priorities. But that was number one.
All righty then.
How's
Thank you
that?
so much. Sounds
Thank
good
you.
to me.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you so much.
Good job.
Next on our agenda is a presentation by the owners of the Holland Building, Steve Englehart and Brian DuPont from our staff.
Is this my clicker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council. And thank you to the audience here, the members of the community. We're very excited to present to you today our vision for the Holland Building, which is on the corner of 100 North Main Street in North Carolina 27. This building has rich history. It's been on the corner, started out as a pharmacy, was later occupied by a doctor's office, a dentist's office, and then became a pet store. There was a recent acquiry of the building and some development or some rehab, which then turned the building over to its present owner, the Plumera Group. I am the architect that was hired by the Plumera Group to share the vision to bring this building to its next life. Our vision for this building is very exciting. We are conceptualizing this building as a destination point for both street traffic and pedestrian traffic. We are proposing to put in a restaurant on the first floor and have office space on the second floor. We want this to be a place that people can walk to that is brings street traffic, pedestrian traffic, and really tries to connect the development that you've seen on South Main Street into North Main Street. And we feel like the catalyst of this building and its rehabilitation will really help to bond the two sides of the street together. We have contacted the Holland family. Mr. Holland, I believe, is 103 years old, and his son, Buck Holland, and our group had a conversation last week, and our question was, can we keep the Holland name, which we thought was important to the area, and they are honored that we want to do that and would love to have the Holland name stay on the building. When we looked at the building and we considered what it really needs to make this project successful, we laid out a restaurant that we feel will draw people in. restaurant bar, including a wine bar. We have outdoor seating on either side, both along NC 27 and North Main Street. And then on the, you can see from the moving video in the lower upper right-hand corner, the vision as we're going around the building, just to show how the building perceives or comes alive from both sides of the intersection. And then on the second floor, you know, we're basically leaving it as an open palette for the right office user, so that we have the street life on the ground floor, and then that office space on the second floor as the appropriate use. Also, as part of this development, we're working with the local, or the next door, we will be working with the next door building owner to share a stair with shared egress to properly and safely egress people from the second floor. We do have a budget that we're putting into this building in the neighborhood of $2.1 million. That doesn't include the money that the Planera Group has put into the yellow building that's across the street, which they also own, where they put in an equal amount of money, if not more. We also are targeting this building to be complete by the end of this year. So that's really our vision, is to keep this project moving fast forward at this point. However, we do have some constraints, and this is where we're asking the City of Mount Holly for some help to share in our vision. We want to talk about things like parking and deliveries, planter boxes, crosswalks, lighting features, as well as shared disposal. This parking diagram comes from the Mount Holly website and really shows the parking areas that are available. We think that the majority of the people that will dine at the restaurant that are not walking to it will park in the 80 space parking deck that's directly behind the yellow building. However, we do have concerns and like to kind of share with the city's vision of where the parking, how the parking will be dissipated throughout the available parking spaces. In addition to that, I talked about the shared dumpster location or disposal, and that currently is behind the cigar bar and kind of nestled in by the church. And our concern, of course, is having the right-of-way to access a shared disposal location. There's a lot of roll-away trash containers that are currently being used, and it's really there's really a need for some consolidated disposal and dumpster enclosure that is tasteful to that area behind the building and easily accessible by the new restaurant and its office tenant. In adjacent to that, I talked about planter boxes. I know that South Main Street has several planter boxes, and we'd love to see that vision move forward into North Main Street, as well as sharing the vision of having taller planter boxes that occur along North Carolina 27. The issues there, of course, are the speed of traffic and the noise from the traffic. And we really want to share in the city's vision for calming that traffic down and providing maybe some tall planters along our building on that facade to really kind of shelter some of the traffic noise from the activity that the restaurant will be stimulating. In addition to that, planter boxes around North Main Street, I already mentioned that. We'd love to have some lower line planter boxes in front of the building that are provided and maintained by the city to go along with those that we see along South Main Street, and really have these end up all the way up North Main Street for the many businesses that are about to open in this part of the street. We have Phoenix Brewery that's about to open. We have Muddy Distillery that's under construction in the yellow building about to open. We also have Catawba Coffee that is already in the yellow building and draws activity there. In addition, you know, the crosswalks that were once in place that you can see remnants of on both the North Main Street side and 27th side, we really would love to see those come back, and really would like to be led by the city of how to work with the state to get the crosswalks back, to really slow the invite the two connections between the north and the south parts of the street. As well as lighting features. We've seen a lot of lighting features be introduced on South Main Street, and we'd love to have that same atmosphere, the inviting atmosphere, the liveliness, not only around the holidays, but all year round, really be part of the North Main Street streetscape as well. With that said, I'd love to have Fawn, who's the owner of the Plumera Group, just say a few words and share in my vision of this project.
Yes, thank you so much, Steve. That was a great job. Hi, council and the citizen of Mount Holly. Thank you so much for having us. I just wanted to introduce myself. The Plumera Group is a family-owned company. And so with the purchase of the White Well building, we do have a vision for Mount Holly, and we want to be part of the community. We have not started, maybe on some of the stuff we've been doing, have not, you know, been the most or best foot forward. We have some restraint and schedule conflict that has kind of held us back a little bit. So we would love to get the support of the city, the community, to kind of propel us into 2023 to get things going. Not only does the Plumera Group own or purchase this building with great vision, we also own the FAR building, and the reason there's two different names are because we have a fourth family member that is part of the Soul Group that owns the FAR building, and so with that fourth member, she's opening up the 119 restaurant, and we also have Eddie here, who's been running the operation and trying to get it open since November. So hopefully the end of this month that would come into fruition. So with that being said, we are committed to the city, to the community. In total, it's that both of these projects is, you know, going to be in the $3.5 to $4 million. So we do want to stay and, you know, be part of it and be supported by the community. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. There's one obvious question, but I'm going to wait to see if a council member asks it. Do any council members have a question?
What kind of restaurant?
What kind of food you going to serve?
Good food, how about that? So for the 119, it's going to be Thai sushi with the Holland building. It's going to be more of a steak, seafood, but don't hold us to that because we're still working on.
You've already said it. It came out of your mouth.
I think Miles might have put that in my mouth a long time
That's
ago.
okay. I for one would love to see a great, nice steak place and a nice place that we can go, and I think Mount Holly is ready for it. Okay. I'm also your neighbor, so I look forward to meeting you.
Yeah, so if the council will be going to the restaurant, we'll go ahead and open it up.
Yeah, no problem.
Just let us know when.
Yeah, Miles.
Have our Christmas dinner there.
That's right. We'd rather have our Christmas dinner there than other places. Do you have anything? Anybody else? Jeff?
Well,
I'm sorry, Mr. Meadows.
very, very supportive of the idea, but I wrote down a list of things that sound like an ask.
Sure.
And I'm not sure that we're in a position to meet most of those asks. So, I mean, you kind of hinted at it, but you didn't really get at it, so I'm not sure if I should go through the brass tacks or not.
Well, I think I'm going to state it this way. In concept, we agree with you in a number of things. You're asking for a dumpster area that, for property we know we don't control. The city doesn't own any of that property. So we are, there are other private landowners, one that just changed hands beside the cigar bar. The picture that you have there just changed property owners. So
Yes.
there's one owner for both of those locations at this point. That's something we don't control necessarily, and there are aspects of the crosswalk we could probably address. There are aspects of the planters, how much into the right-of-way is that for DOT? There's a number of things there. I think what would be best is if staff sat down to specifically go through the ask, make sure we understand where that is and how we approach. We've approached one property owner there that doesn't seem amenable to working with us. So I'm not sure if the other property owner might, where you had the picture. That's possible. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Mayor, because that is actually one of our biggest strength is the right-of-way, in which we would love to be able, or get the support from the city, from Brian. I know we kind of discussed that a little bit, because without the right-of-way, I just don't see the vision happening, since we don't have access for delivery and the shared dumpster because of the location of the building. I mean, we can't park, deliver a truck on 27, and if it's on North Main Street, it's just a short distance for car to turn, and it's just, a two-way street. So those are the things that we would love to get the support and get the city to kind of help us resolve some of those issues, because we're projecting November schedule. I mean, you know how time just flies by when you're having fun. So with that schedule, I just don't, it's going to be hard for us to meet it if we can't get some of those questions answered. As far as construction of the building, I think we're pretty much ready to go, because this project's been worked on for, at least a year and a half already.
Mr. Meadows.
So parking is something we've talked about a lot. We have 4 corners. One is already in place. You pointed it out in your presentation. 2 is behind another strip on the other end of town, diagonally from where you're at. There's been discussion about behind the buildings where Troust is, and then also behind your property. The city's vision is included trying to get control of this parking lot. So that's something we share as a vision. We think that the city owning that property in the long run is best for all the businesses, but that vision is not necessarily shared by all members in the community. So let me cover the parking that way. The only 2 things that I've heard that we have had any success or control over so far in what you've asked is the lighting. And we've done that down Central Avenue. We've done that up to a point on Main Street. I could see us including that in our budgeting process. The crosswalks, we have a couple of different ways to do that. We can kind of do the standard we have been doing. We've also got an arts program for crosswalks where it could be a little jazzier. So there's a way to go about that, but there's a presentation that has to go with that. After that, the dumpster area, what I would encourage you to do is go meet with your neighbors. Go talk to them and see if you can get a shared vision amongst the adjacent property owners and come back with a presentation to us about how you'd like to go about doing that, because we don't have any say in it. It's private property. So asking us for something we can't grant, I don't know how to get you there other than to encourage you to meet with your neighbors. And
I can introduce them to the owner of the cigar bar and the florist and the bar. I can introduce you to that person. I can help there. I'm just saying that's one thing that I can do.
Well, there's another property that may be for sale, I'm hearing, that would give you control of the property. You might want to go try and have that conversation. There's a church I've heard that may be interested in moving to a piece of property they own. So if you're interested in another piece of property, you could control a lot of the parking.
Thank you, but I'm not sure we have another $6 million to expend.
It would solve a lot of your problems, because you would own everything back there and be able to get that all straightened out. The planters, that's state right-of-way, so I'm not sure how much say we have in that either. So while I love everything you're showing us in pictures, most of your ask outside of some lighting, some crosswalks, I don't see where we have any say in it.
Would the council consider going vertical for parking?
I don't think we're there.
What does that mean? Parking deck? I'm not sure we have another 10 million to do a parking deck. We have just, I mean, that has been something that has not been formally discussed. We've thought about it. We understand the potential need because of, a lot of our property. In fact, the vast majority of our properties in town are very cooperative with one another in parking. We really only have one parcel that is not as how do I say that, open to others parking on their property. So we don't really have an issue outside of that situation. I know one of the businesses has been introducing valet parking, where the valet would come and escort your folks' car back to a designated area, and that way the parking kind of can be mitigated. And that could be a team effort among the small business owners because everyone has the same issue in that area, okay? So that is something I think the council knows that there is an issue there with parking. We all know it. We haven't come to a resolution yet, on a satisfactory parking resolution behind the buildings. But we're working with the Methodist Church, we're working with others to try to get that accomplished. But I think what we're saying is we're excited about the opportunity to work with you. We will work with you in any way that we can to influence DOT. If it's DOT, we can influence that. I can make introductions. As I said to the business owner, I would encourage you to reach out to Finish Line Christian Center to talk to them and develop a relationship there, and see if you guys can come to an agreement. That would be good. I mean, that's your best bet right now. I mean, I'm happy to meet with you over a cup of coffee and talk about that area at any time.
That would be great.
I think it would be beneficial. Try to work out some solutions.
Yeah, that would really help with scheduling as well, yep.
Yep. I can't promise anything from the council, but I can at least make introductions. And other council members can as well as they see.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for investing in our town, and thank you for what you're proposing to
We're
bring.
glad to be here. We're glad.
We're going to do what we can to help you. Thank you.
All right, great, thank you.
The next is a public hearing. Do y'all want us to take 5 minutes? Y'all good?
National law enforcement.
Yeah, it was on the consent agenda.
Okay. I thought you put it on presentations. That's
No, it was on the consent agenda. Thank you. Next is a public hearing regarding a proposed text amendment as submitted by city staff with the advice of the Utilities Department of Section 3.21 of the Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance. Paul Lowe.
Hello.
Hello. Paul Lowe.
So this is a text amendment that was submitted by staff. Basically, the rhyme and reason, or the reason for the text amendment, is just to make sure that our subdivision and land development ordinance matches what is practice. So in this case, for example, we don't require standalone grading permit applications. So what we have been, a part of our review process is to require grading plans to be submitted, and those are reviewed and approved as part of the zoning permit application. So basically, the goal of this text amendment is just to make sure that our text matches current practice. And Planning Commission reviewed this last week. They voted 7-0 to recommend approval. Staff recommends approval. I can answer any questions.
I'll entertain a motion to go out of our regular meeting into public hearing. Motion by Ms. Harris, second by Mr. Moore. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. We're in public hearing. We have no one signed up for public hearing. I'll entertain a motion to come out of our public hearing into our regular meeting. Motion by Ms. Polish, second by Mr. Meadows. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Does council have any questions for Mr. Lowe? Does council wish to take action? Ms. Shoemaker.
I move to approve the text amendment.
Second by Ms. Polish. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passes. Next public hearing is regarding a proposed text amendment as submitted by city staff to the emergency response requirements for trail systems. Mr. Lowe.
Okay. Again, this is a staff-initiated text amendment, but basically is the same goal, is to make sure that our policies are matching our practice. Functionally, plan staff learned that the color-coded format for the greenway markers are not being used by either fire or police. So after learning this, we as in planning staff worked with both parks, police, and fire to have a more practical, logical, straightforward system for naming our current trails and future trails. So basically, going forward, what we're suggesting, and number 4 was the only thing that was updated, but the scenario is the only thing that's being updated is how we're naming it, the naming regime. So basically, instead of going from I'm at blue, quarter of a mile, for example, it's going to follow basically either developed greenway segments like the Riverhawk Greenway, so that'll be RWG, or like the trails up in Imagery would be IMG. So that would be more logical and would be make sense versus just saying I'm in blue 0.25 or something like that. And also that would help emergency responders if something happens. Folks would know exactly where these folks are. And also it's just it's just logical, it makes sense, and it matches what we're currently doing. And also the section was rewritten for clarity, because if you look at the old language or the existing text, it's kind of confusing, and then just as in general for staff to explain policy to folks, but then also for developers to understand the policy. We rewrote it for clarity and make it as practical as possible. And again, Planning Commission looked at this last week, recommended approval, staff recommends approval, and again, I can answer any questions.
Entertain a motion to go out of our regular meeting and enter our public hearing. Motion by Ms. Shoemaker, second by Mr. Craig. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. We have no one signed up for the public hearing. Entertain a motion to go out of our public hearing back in our regular meeting. Motion by Mr. Moore, second by Ms. Shoemaker. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Does council have any questions? If not, do you wish to take any action? Mr. Moore?
Approve the text amendment.
Second by Ms. Polish. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passes. Ms. Polish has a quick right hand tonight. Next is, thank you, Mr. Lowe. Next is public comment. I'll remind everyone it's 3 minutes, and to state your name and address for the record. And we won't respond, but we will take your information and get back to you at the right time. Ms. Wanda Holloway.
Thank Teresa. I'm the great-granddaughter of Ransom Hunter, and I just want to thank Teresa O'Connor for a wonderful presentation, and it's a go. That's all I got to say.
Well, she's with the family, so y'all understand. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your vote of confidence. We appreciate that. Alyssa Summit, sidewalks. That's not right. That's Allie. Ayla. Man, I am really sorry I mispronounced your name. It happens to me all the time. Okay.
Do you want to turn and talk to them, and then they'll still be able to hear you? So turn that way, and you're going to work it down.
Hi, my name is Ayla Summit, and I'm here to talk to you about sidewalks and how I need them. I've been wanting to walk on them, and I bet other people do too. So will you let us have sidewalks, and when will you let us have sidewalks? They will keep us safe, and I could walk to my friends' houses. Other people could walk their dogs, and they could jog, but if we don't have sidewalks, we may get hit by a car.
So this is on Cherry Street, right? You're at 504 Cherry Street. Okay. Absolutely. That is perfectly fine. We appreciate you having the guts to come up here tonight. Thank you.
She really wants these sidewalks.
I know. I think that's great. Is it Kissy?
It is.
I'm batting 50%. All right, Kissy, you're up. Kissy Summit.
falling apart. All right. I'll just get started while she's going.
No, go ahead.
So we live in the Catawba Heights neighborhood, and we were annexed into Mount Holly in 1988. And part of the agreement of that annexation was the promise that we would get sidewalks. And I was told that this was being researched, but it's been a year now, so here I am again. Once again, it's Girl Scout cookie season. Have my Girl Scout here. And it's just not safe to go door to door to sell cookies on our street. And that is the recommended method for her age, is just to go to your neighbors and take them the cookies, and it's not safe enough for us to do that. We knew many of the neighborhood children, and 2 of them are refugees from Yemen, and they started out in New York City, and now they're in Mount Holly, and I asked them, how do you like it here? And they said, oh, it's a beautiful place to live, but we don't have as many friends because it's not safe for us to walk to the neighbor houses. And that blew my mind, that compared to New York City, he doesn't feel safe walking to his neighbor's house. And with our town motto being connecting community and nature, I just felt like that was, it was kind of embarrassing, actually. Our county motto is get outside. And from all the neighbor kids that I know, they are not your typical watch TV, get on your iPad, play your video games. These are kids that like to be outside, and I feel like we're really doing them a disservice by not giving them access to one another right in their own neighborhood. We had been cutting through several neighbors' yards, which is possibly illegal, and not really teaching them a good habit, but it was the only way that we felt safe getting to and from Catawba Heights Elementary. And one of the biggest cut-throughs, the neighbor has actually told us not to cut through their yard anymore. So now with the buildings that have gone up on Cason Street and the business that is doing so good in Mount Holly, it's increased the commuter traffic on our road. And then with us losing our cut-through, it is more unsafe than ever for me to just get my kids from play dates in our neighborhood. I'm actually dreading the next time I go babysit 2 of the little kids, and I have to pick them up by walking, but usually I bring all the kids that are walking home with me, and I'm dreading the next time I have to go, since that neighbor has rescinded letting us walk through the yard, because I can't walk 10 kids home. It's just not safe enough. So that's really an uncomfortable position I feel like I'm put in, to not be able to have them all over.
Thank you.
And it's
3 minutes is up. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
God
it.
bless y'all.
Next is Dr. Eric Van Wilson.
As a gift, I wanted to give each council person a little something, okay? So take one. My name is Dr. Eric Van Wilson. I am the great-grandson of Ransom Hunter. I'm the only family member that still owns property on Glendale. I was born and raised right across the street from this property, and I was on this property more than I was at home, because it was my great-grandfather's property, my grandmother and grandfather's property. So it does mean a lot to me of everything that the city is doing for this property. It's been our family's hope, prayer, since the purchase of it in 2014, that this development into a park would come to fruition. One of the things that I really wanted to say, and I know my time is clicking, I'm sure all of y'all have heard the song, Mary, Did You Know? Especially since Christmas just ended. And if you know the words to it, it's asking the question to Mary, did she know what her son was to do? And so I sing too on the side. Instead of also being an architect, I do sing. But I sang that song over the Christmas holidays, and it fell in my spirit of Julia and Mike Hunter. In 1825, when Julia gave birth to Ransom. Julia, did you know that your son was going to be sold away from your family at age 13 to the Hoyle Plantation? Julia, did you know that when he was freed in the 1860s and was given monies to purchase land, that he would acquire and be a blacksmith, a businessman, a delivery stable, to own a mercantile store right there on Glendale? Julia, did you know that his span of properties would span from that property out 3 miles, that from his front porch, 3-mile radius was all his, and it can be notated on a deed that's dated 1874 in the Gaston County Register of Deeds, and how he gave property to establish 2 churches, as Teresa had already said, started the first black African-American school.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Thank y'all so
Appreciate
much.
for your time. Thank you for providing this to us.
And this is his cane, so I bought this in the spirit of this. This
Wonderful.
is his walking cane.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, under new business, discussion of new legislation in regard to creating a downtown social district. Abby Miller.
First of all, thank you, Mayor and Council. So with event season, we just wanted to bring this to your attention. Effective today, there's been some changes in the social district legislation. So starting out, sorry, I hit something. What is a social district? So a social district is a defined area in which a person may consume alcoholic beverages sold by an ABC permittee located within the social district. A social district may include both indoor and outdoor areas of businesses within the defined area during the days and hours set by local government. A social district may include privately owned property, including permittee and non-permittee businesses, multi-tenant establishments, as well as public streets, crosswalks, or parking areas, whether the streets or parking areas are closed to vehicle traffic. The changes that are made for 2023, like I said, effective today, social districts will now be able to incorporate nonprofits into the designated zones established by municipalities. Prior to this change, nonprofits were not allowed to sell within the designated area. For events such as Springfest, Mount Holly Nights, and Miracle on Main Street, nonprofit organizations could sell alcoholic beverages to be consumed on the streets. However, the businesses in downtown were not able to sell alcoholic beverages that could be taken onto the street. If we choose to make downtown a social district now for those events, both nonprofits and the businesses downtown will both be able to sell alcohol. So staff is just looking for direction on whether you guys want to move forward in looking more into the social district, and then we would come back with hours, locations, and things like that.
Does council have any direction or questions, comments? I personally would like to see what BUMA's input would be. They have the most participating partners in that. Would they even be in support, in favor of it? Because if you look at it now, we already have a social district with the nonprofits. This is only to include private business, to allow drinks to go outside the business. Another thing that, even though it's not a city liability, if somebody falls outside of a business, but as an ABC permittee, who is actually responsible when they've been to 4 different places? Who does that fall on from the ABC permit process? Is it the last person who served them? Is it the person's out in the street? You get where I'm coming from? I would like some history on that now that it's been in place more than a year in areas like Kannapolis and others, what their experience has been and what they've discovered. Yes.
So it addresses the nonprofit issue, but we had other discussions and feedback from the businesses that the details, this is high level and sounds great, and I think we had some level of excitement. We had some questions about details, but when we started getting into what actually was put upon the businesses themselves, there was something about wristbands and cups and policing, and they didn't want anything to do with it. And I currently, with this change, don't see where, I think what we're doing now works. I don't know that we need this or even desire it as a group. So I'm not all that interested in spending a lot of staff time on this at all, personally.
Yeah, and like I said, if BUMA came back and said, oh, you know, we'd definitely like to take a look at us from that, we would want to be participating. So you got to remember, these are just South Main Street businesses. This is not North Main Street. This is not Highway 27. This is strictly Summit, Troust, Jack Beagles, primarily. I mean, Basilio's does sell, some alcohol, but those are their primary businesses.
I just offered to take this and discuss it with the BUMA group, and Brian and I will be in attendance at the next meeting, and we can see if there's interest, and potentially if there is, we can reach out to Abby and maybe have some additional details drummed up about how things have changed. But I do think it'd be worthwhile to, like we said, it was kind of dead in the water because of like business interests and some other hiccups that came along, and I think it'd be worthwhile for us to find out
see if it's changed.
More of the details and get a little bit of information, and maybe if we had some of that and we could take it with us to BUMA, that we could have like a little bit slightly better conversation and see where all that's going to fall out. So.
Yep. Mr. Meadows.
I'd also like to hear from the police department as well. That there was some discussion, but we didn't drill down into what does it do to manpower, what kind of cost, overtime and that, because I think that there was significant concern around what it was going to do to us from a budgetary standpoint. So if that's something, since we're heading into budget season, kind of need to know what we're doing with this sooner than later, in my opinion.
My guess is we're not going to do anything with the social district this year. That's my guess. Because
I'm with Jeff. The businesses didn't really want to do this, I don't think, the last time we talked about this, because it was going to be a hardship on them, the rules that they had to go by. So, I mean, if Lauren wants to go and talk to them,
well,
find
some
out
of
if they
those
changed
were
their minds.
Well, the issues they had were the number of cups, the stickers, and
But
all
has
the.
any of that changed?
But that's what we have to find out.
As I was saying, all of the businesses decided if we did it, we would buy them together. So there would be a bulk purchase of all of the cups, and then all you have to do is print your own printed label to put on the cup. That was part of the solution. And then it stopped. Was that even something that was going to go forward since, hey, if nonprofits can't participate, then we need to stop. And that's where the whole conversation stopped. So that's the reason I think if you go back to BUMA, which is going to have all of those people involved, they may say, no, I don't want to do it. Okay, don't do it. That's easy.
There was also a lot of discussion, which we didn't straighten out last time around, what is the geography? So if we're going to carry that forward, we probably need to answer, the nonprofits can sell, now we're not hurting them. That was one point, but the businesses weren't terribly supportive. We never really drilled down into what it does to our police staff, and then we never nailed down what the geography is. So if we're going to have this discussion again, I think we need to have all of that. Otherwise, we'll just be sending folks back again to the well for another bucket of water, which
I don't think it'll go anywhere. I just think it's worthwhile to ask.
I'm fine with the ask. I just
Yeah.
you brought it up
Because I think
more than just that plank that we needed to sort out.
I understand.
I was a huge supporter of this last time until I got into the details of it, and I'm like, I just don't.
I think it makes more sense if you've got a natural barrier already created and it's already a defined event as the staff has suggested. If it's Mount Holly Nights or it's Friday night event, I think you already have a natural barriers. You already have people who are accustomed to it. The only difference for a business would be they can come into one of our businesses and leave with a drink of a choice rather than it's, let's just say beer or wine from a specific domestic bottler. You see what I mean? That would be the only advantage.
I would say that I think like the first step here is to like, you know, find out if the businesses are interested, and then things like concerns about the police, while obviously we would discuss it with the police officers, but costs and you know, police impact and budget impact and things like that. I feel like we could reach out to some of the communities that you've already discussed and find out, like, Kannapolis, has this actually impacted, has this caused problems? Because I have a feeling that I would be surprised if it was really causing a lot of problems. I don't think it would really change the landscape of what's going on in Mount Holly that much. I just think that, you know, you'd have the ability to walk out of a restaurant with the drink in your hand otherwise, instead of finishing it before you do, so. But I think that we can do that very easily, but I think, that, like we said, tonight we've prioritized, like, what's the first step? I think the first step is just find out if there's any interest, so, and then,
Yeah.
I was just going to mention that I know that we talked about, and Marie mentioned this, that if we went across the tracks, that would be a total separate social district. So that throws another kink in the, you know, the situation too. So if we went across Highway 27, that would
I wouldn't recommend doing it at all.
Right, I know, but I'm just saying.
If you got some representation over there, more than one place, then, you know, if you got this restaurant on the corner, you've got another one down there, maybe there's some synergy there, but there's no reason to do it right now.
Right.
Yeah, really, this was just a conversation on, do we want to do it? Or does council and the mayor want us to even pursue anything right now? Because we're like in the process of planning our special event. So we know there's a lot of leg work to do that we didn't do, and that wasn't the intent of the presentation, was to have all the answers. We just wanted to know, hey, are y'all interested? If so, then we'll go down that path of getting all the information back to you at some time in the very near future.
Anything else? All right. Presentation of mid-year financial review, Ms. Wood. Great job, Abby. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Come before you tonight with the mid-year update that we had talked about back when we were adopting the budget. So as of December 31st, 2022, the general fund revenue collection mid-year is at 58.77% of budget, $10,464,779. Some of the highlights: sales tax with 4 months in collected, we're at 37%. To be up budget would have been 33.32%, so we're a little ahead on that. Franchise fees were 1/4 of collection, which would have been 25, so we're at 28%. So we're and of course, property taxes is above schedule. As you see, last year we were a little bit ahead at 61.30% of total budget, but the budget was smaller, so that's why that number is more for last year. Our interest earned, as you see, we broke that out. Last fiscal year, it was running at 0.01% was all we were gaining. As of July this year, we started looking at some different, trying to maneuver money around, and the North Carolina cash management rates started increasing. So we put a bulk of our money there, and it started out, like I said, at 0.01%. The yield rate in December was 4.14%, and it's steadily going up about 0.5 percentage every month. So that's why we budgeted 120, we're at 391, 248, just halfway, and so that's going to come even more. And they don't project it going down. They still see it about 0.5 percentage going up. On the expenditure side, we're at 41.79%. As you can see, all the departments are right in a little bit over administration. The IT side at 72%. The reason that's so much higher half year is there's a lot of front load on the beginning of the budget, like software and equipment purchases, like one time that we just knock out at the beginning of the fiscal year. So that's why that one's so much higher, but it's not going to end up going over budget. It's just all front loaded. And we're $2,755,539 revenue over expenditures, which is 26.33%. On the enterprise fund, we're at 56.25%. Last year was a little bit higher, but as you see also, the budget last year was 9 million, a little over 9 million, this year's 13 million. So that's why the percentage looks a little bit more higher last year versus this year. On the expenditure side, we're at 47.48%. Last year, this time, we were 65.18, but we had a, I'm sorry. We had the meter replacement program expenditure on the enterprise fund, so that's what pushed the expenditures up so much like this same time last year. And as of December 31st, 2022, we're $3,315,884 revenue over expenditures for the enterprise fund. Our unassigned fund balance as of December 30th is $10,920,680, 61.98% of budget. Unrestricted net position as of December 31st is $11,341,819, which is 82.65% of budget. The unassigned fund balance is, of course, the general fund. The unrestricted net position is the enterprise fund. When we budgeted for salaries this fiscal year, staff proposed a 5.99% COLA. Council approved 4% and wanted us to reevaluate mid-year on possibly initiating an additional 1.99 to compare to the overall average at that time. That time, when we done the budget, there was 49 reporting municipalities, and the average was the 5.99, so that's why we came up with that. The cost to implement a 1.99% additional COLA January through June, the remainder of the fiscal year, for the general funds, $84,482.23, utility fund, $22,652.38, which is a total of $107,134.64. If we implemented the 4.99 and retroed it back all the way to July 1, it would be $168,964.46 for the general fund and $45,304.76 for the utilities fund, which is a total of $214,269.22. That's all I have. Any questions?
I do have one.
Mr. Meadows?
What do we do for the next salary study?
Hannah is HR is working with a consultant now to get that in place. We will have the results of that as part of the budget process when we come to you in April and May. And it would go into effect for July 1 next year if it's approved by council.
So 2 other questions. One is, anybody looked at if we did A or B, what that would do to where it puts salaries in the ranges that we have? Would it put people to the midpoint? Would it push them over? Has anybody looked at what impact that would have?
No, sir, we have not.
What about the current salary structure we have? That's what he's asking. If you give the extra almost 2%, where does that put them in a range? That's what he's asking, I believe.
That's exactly what I'm asking.
They don't know.
We can get
What me and Hannah and I talked about a little bit when we were going through this was that if it was approved, say these raises were approved at this time, that there has been some work with the consultant already. We would have to feed that data to the consultant to say, hey, staff members just got a 1.9% raise. Now, how does that factor into the existing salary study? And so they'll have to prepare that data using this salary study data coming up with this 1.9%. So that's how we were kind of playing it out. Was like they've done some work. Now we're mid-year. They're probably gonna have to go back and do a little bit more work because we have to update all the salaries at that point.
Still not answering the question. What I was asking is if we take action moving these numbers forward, the first question is, how does it compare to our current salary brackets? You know, does it push people to the midpoint? Does it push them over? Was the first question. My second question, you're kind of answering, I haven't asked, which is forecasting it forward. You know, it says, okay, this is $200,000. If we go one way, it's 102 or 3, whatever it is on the other. That's a static number. What I'm trying to get at is, what does that do going forward? Because I suspect you haven't got a merit system in place. You're about to come forward with a budget asking for probably another 6%, given the way inflation is behaving. So I'm trying to get a handle on what does it do to our budget going forward, and how much does this impact the next bucket? I mean, I'm not opposed to doing it. I'm just trying to understand what impact it has. So we ought to be able to see what it does to our current salaries. It should feed into our next salary study, but we also should have some idea of, you know, this isn't $200,000, it's $200,000 plus since we're halfway through the year. What does that actually look like going into next year's budget if you do this? Because it's this increase plus something. Because if we didn't do the increase, we'd be in one place. If we do it there, there's going to be another number on top of that. And since we're getting into the budget season, it'd be nice to know what that number looks like.
I can work.
Would it be,
with
would it be fair to be able to come back at our work session
Yes, sir.
in 2 weeks to have this information prepared
Yes, sir.
and make the decision then on what to do? Is that, do you need that information before a decision can be made?
I'm not comfortable making a $200,000 decision without having a pretty good idea of
Okay.
what impact it has going forward. But I'm only one person. If there's 4 others that want to move on, then let's go.
All right, Mr. Moore?
I will say that when we approved the 4%, we said if we could afford to do it in either December or January, that we would move forward with that. So if it comes to that, I would vote for it in a second. So, but the study, I understand the study, and what effect that's going to have on the next budget. So,
Does anybody else have any comments, Ms. Shoemaker?
I feel like maybe I'm being obtuse here, but if we did give a 2% adjustment and then it was factored into the salary study that is currently happening, wouldn't that just change, you know what I mean? Like if they're here and moving them up 2% here just means that they would move less after the rate study, correct? So we would just be giving them the money now. You don't think that? I feel like the salary study that's taking place would adjust.
You have boundaries currently,
Yeah.
and I'm curious, where would this put people in the current boundaries? So that's one question. Second question is, when you move the boundaries, that will go into the algorithm that they're going to run to set the new boundaries. So it would increase our base in the next range from where our people are compared to what others are doing would shift up more than likely.
So if we look at the benchmark information that's being studied, you're studying other municipalities. We were just told 49 municipalities went 5.99. If we were to stay at 4 and taking that logic, your logic would say the bands would move up 6%. So I'm kind of hearing what you're saying. I'm hearing what you're saying, but I think at the end of the day, we go back, give the 2%, and we move forward. We get this information that resets kind of where we are with the next budget, because we already know if that's the information that is available, that's what others have given, that's where we are. We can afford to do it. You saw the fund balances that we have. That's our most important asset. I don't see any reason not to move forward with it myself. But I don't have a vote, so I'm
Can I
just.
ask another question?
Sure.
The range for the salaries, and I don't know if this is Hannah or Miles, but the range for the salaries, isn't that like completely based on the data that we get from the other municipalities? What were the high and low points set? Like, how were they set? Is that something that is a moving target, or is that where the data from other municipalities comes in? So if it's like here now and it moves up, say 6%, yeah, I don't know.
So if you're going to do municipality salary studies, where does the information come from? It's from the entire market, not just municipalities?
So it is market data. The previous salary study, it was based on strictly local municipalities and municipalities within the state of North Carolina. This salary study is also doing municipalities and the private sector for certain positions. So for like field positions where we're losing the bulk of our employees when they're going to the private sector. So there are certain positions that are both. So it's going to be different, the salary study, than the previous. So I can't. Yeah.
So I guess my question is, like, take Miles, like, so if you compare like 50 city managers from across the state, and that determines, is that the data, like the comparison of the 50 salaries of city managers from similar municipalities around the state? Is that your high and low point?
Yes.
And then we as a we as a city have decided to aim for the midpoint on those. And that was like our policy, right? Like more or less, like a loose.
More or less, yes.
We try to aim for the midpoint. So that range will be changed by what the other municipalities, so if, say, like, obviously this is imaginary, but like, say everyone in the state gave a 6% raise, that whole range is literally just gonna move up 6%.
More or less.
Okay, yeah.
And yes, we will be adjusting our pay grades to salary study as well.
Okay.
And they will be most likely bumping up, because everyone did do a salary study the same year that we did.
Okay.
Mr. Meadows?
Having participated in a couple of different committees in other organizations, yes, you look at what everybody else is doing, you look at the private sector, but then they're gonna look at where are our folks in that range. They're also gonna look at our budget, and they're gonna say, you can only afford 80% of the market or 75% of the market, and they're gonna take into consideration what your target is. So the information I'm asking for is to try to get a range and get some idea of where we're at, because it needs to inform the decisions going forward, because when we shift everybody up, if that's what happens, we need to be sure that in next year's budget, we can carry that. You know, so I'm not trying to hurt anybody, I'm just trying to make sure that we have the proper data, that it is what we say it is, because the decision's not made in a vacuum. All of these build on each other and have an impact. So I'm not opposed to giving our folks, you know, additional money. I'm thrilled that the concerns that we expressed before have not held out, because if anybody remembers the last conversation, the trends that we were worried about were the property tax gonna hold up? Was the sales tax gonna hold up? Was the business revenue hold up? It has held up. I'm shocked at that, but, you know, I was wrong. I thought it would go down. That's why I don't play the stock market. I used to get it wrong. So, I just think we ought to know the context within which we're making decisions.
Sure. Totally understand. Any other questions, comments, Mr. Moore?
I want to make a motion. I want us to go back and pay our folks retro back to July of 2022.
Okay, we have a motion.
1.99%.
Okay, we have a motion, second by Ms. Harris. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed? We have an abstention, I guess. Okay. All right, thank you. Motion passes.
It's not an abstention. If I don't raise my hand, it's voting for.
Huh?
If I don't raise my hand, it's voting for.
Okay. All right. Discussion to extend water to North Belmont Park. Jonathan Wilson, Carrie Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Carrie, thanks for waiting.
So this
Need
is
to get you
Carrie.
on the agenda at the beginning, not the end.
Well, I heard there's a football game tonight, so.
Is there?
We'll try and be brief.
Yeah.
So Carrie approached us in the Utilities Department back in the spring of 2022 about extending water service to the North Belmont Park. It is a Gaston County park that is currently not within a jurisdiction and therefore does not have municipal water, but there is a need for that there. They have some funding in place to fund this, but I'll let Carrie go over that and all the details associated with that park.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Thank you for having me again. And tonight I'm just going to tell you a little bit about a proposed, very exciting water line project. As part of the American Rescue Plan Act, which we know as ARPA, Gaston County was awarded $43 million in coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds. The county's internal ARPA selection committee accepted applications from county departments for projects and confirmed their eligibility, and then scored them according to criteria such as impact on the county budget, alignment with county strategic plan, benefit to qualified census tracts, demonstration of need, equity impact, and diversity of population served. And then the highest scored projects were considered most favorable. Our ARPA funding is not required to be obligated until December 31st of 2024, and the deadline to expend the funds is December 31st of 2026. As part of the county's community health, safety, and well-being strategic focus area, and also falling under the U.S. Treasury's eligible use category of investing in water and sewer infrastructure, the county's committee approved 4 water line projects for Public Works to move forward with and to take to the Board of County Commissioners for approval. I think the slide that you're seeing actually has an error. The North Belmont Park water line is listed twice, so I apologize for that, but there are 4 water line projects that we are moving forward with, I hope. Chapel Grove water line extension, the Tryon Elementary water line extension, North Belmont water line extension, and Lowell Elementary water line. The need for these water line projects has been documented in the county's CIP for many years, and now with the ARPA money and with local partnerships, we can finally consider moving forward with them. The U.S. Treasury's final rule allows local governments a wide latitude to identify investments in water and sewer infrastructure. The final rule aligns with eligible uses of ARPA funds with the type of categories of projects that would be eligible to receive financial assistance through the EPA's Clean Water State Revolving Fund and the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. These waterline projects fall into the EPA's category for transmission and distribution, including new water main extensions to serve existing residents not served by a safe supply of potable water. Eligible project phases for this funding include planning and design and construction associated with the new water main extensions. The Drinking Water Fund is meant to serve existing populations and address public health and/or regulatory compliance issues for the existing population, and it can include fire protection, and it may be sized for a reasonable amount of population growth over the useful life of the project. So, why North Belmont Park water line? Well, the community in this area, as you know, is currently served by numerous groundwater wells or community well systems. Gaston County continually has difficulty providing adequate clean drinking water for the park due to groundwater and well issues. The drinking water well at the park has been replaced due to low flow and water quality issues. Additionally, water is not available for irrigation of the playing fields that has increased, that usage has increased since the pandemic. Not only will this project provide a much-needed reliable source of safe drinking water to the park and the surrounding community, it will also aid in fire protection for the community. And if this is a successful project, there may be opportunity for other collaborative projects in the area. This is a little bit hard to see on the screen, but the dark blue line along Old Hickory Grove Road is your current water line project that's under construction. The proposed ARPA water line project will connect to that and will extend approximately 1.5 miles to serve the park and residents along the line. We're currently exploring 2 options along. Option 1 is shown in the light blue, and option 2 is in the red color. In determining which route would be best for the project, we'll work with Mr. Wilson and analyze all of the things, the topography, the number of potential new customers, any conflicts with easements. The ARPA money can fund construction of the line and can fund any service lines up to premise plumbing. The funds can also cover easement acquisitions for willing sellers. The timeline here, we've already done a few things. So far, we've initiated the project internally, and we met with the City of Belmont, and they did not have the capacity to serve this project. And so then we met with Mount Holly utility staff to determine if this collaboration was feasible. And we think that it is, and so the county has hired an engineer. A letter was mailed to the property owners in the area informing them of the potential project as well as the early work that will take place if Mount Holly approves this project to move forward. Field survey and geotech exploration will be scheduled, and then design will begin. The county will work with Mount Holly on an interlocal agreement determining the details of the partnership and future customer service options. A community meeting will be planned to inform the residents of the project and of the options that are agreed upon to tap on to the new system. The schedule you see here will be dependent on approvals and the execution of the agreement between the county and Mount Holly. So thank you for your time this evening, and we will go to questions. And I'm glad Jonathan is here.
Council have any questions? Mr. Meadows?
What would the rate structure look like for somebody new tapping onto this proposed line?
They would fall under the outside the city limit customer rates.
And the second question is, it's quite expensive to tap on currently, so can any of these funds be used? Because otherwise, I don't think folks are going to, cough up $4,000 or $5,000 to tap onto a water line when they've got a perfectly good well.
Historically, the way that it's been done, to my understanding, is when the construction takes place, the taps are normally put in then, so there would be no tap fee paid by the customer or resident, but they would have to pay for the meter fee and then the capital capacity recovery fee for water.
Any way to use the ARPA funds to pay for the meter?
That
or those funds?
I don't know. We could definitely research it.
We can research that. Yeah, we're still very early, and that's something we can hash out in the interlocal agreement. I would like to have all of that spelled out very clearly, especially if we're going out to the community to inform them of the project. I want them to know, we want to be very transparent with them about what this means and what their options are.
I guess one other exploration, this is a little different than what we've typically done for outside of our area water. Maybe we ought to explore that, having a standard rate rather than a double rate. Usually that's been put on commercial and or institutional folks when we're talking about just standard working folk, especially given the area that we're talking about. If you're talking about thousands of dollars and that you're not going to get a lot of participation, so then we're just basically running water to a park, and I don't think that's the intent. So a couple things to explore that make it a little easier on getting actual participation.
I think the only thing to consider there is any precedent we've set with any other residents. I think that, I don't remember any. I know we went to East Gaston, we ran the water line up there. I'm not sure how many people tapped on, and I don't know what their water rate is, but you're talking about essentially the same community. It's just one street over as the crow flies. So that would be a consideration. Also, I'm sure there's some people in the audience tonight from other subdivisions along the line that are interested in their neighborhood being extended into. Would the county be interested, and I mean, it's worth a question. You can only say yes or no, so it's okay. Extending into established neighborhoods in the county and helping them extend water to their location, their homes? And it's along the line now, would be the extension.
So I actually cannot say yes or no to that.
No, I understand that. I wouldn't expect you to.
But that is something
But
that
we
we
just
can
need
talk
Chad
about.
Brown to answer to his constituents in that area,
Yes.
so that he can answer that question, because that would be his area.
That's right.
So. Does that make sense? I think I addressed the question that was the young man in the back corner back there, the hat pulled down. Yeah, I love you too, buddy. All right, any other questions? I think all things look good, right? Council is conceptually in favor of this. I think our staff has said we have the capacity to do it. It's been an area that's needed serving for a long time. Having grown up in that area, I can attest to it, so.
Cheapest way out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the facts of well failures, et cetera, that's going on, so. Thank you. We're happy that that was considered and moving in the right direction, so we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Entertain a motion to go have our regular meeting into closed session. Motion by Mr. Craig, second by Ms. Shoemaker. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Closed session. Are we going to do that in here or the council conference room? Bye.